Sir Isaac Newton, an English physicist and mathematician, is widely regarded as one of the most influential scientists of all time and a key figure in the scientific revolution. He is best known for his laws of motion and universal gravitation. He made contributions to optics, mathematics, astronomy, and theology. In fact, he was a true polymath. Newton was born prematurely on Christmas Day 1642 at Woolsthorpe Manor in Lincolnshire, England. His father, also named Isaac, had died 3 months before his birth. His mother, Hannah Escoffe, was the daughter of a wealthy landowner, and she married her cousin, a clergyman named Isaac Newton, who would raise young Isaac. When Newton was 2, his parents had him baptized at the village church. At this point, his name became Isaac Newton. As a boy, Newton showed signs of being different from other children. Instead of playing with other children, he preferred playing by himself. He would spend hours making things out of scraps that he'd found lying around. For example, he would use sticks to make sundials, or he would make toys out of scraps of wood and cloth. He even made a water clock when he was just 12 years old. At first, his mother wanted him to follow in his stepfather's footsteps and become a clergyman, so she sent him to the King's School, Grantham, hoping that he would be influenced by his stepfather. However, she soon realized that this was not going to happen. Instead of studying for the ministry, young Isaac was spending most of his time playing around the schoolyard and performing experiments. And then there were the girls. The headmaster once caught Newton holding a cat by its tail and dangling it in front of a female classmate, and asked him what he thought he was doing. "I was trying to make her angry," replied Newton. Asked the headmaster. "I don't like her," said Newton. The headmaster then asked him why he didn't like her. "She won't let me play with her ball," replied Newton. After hearing this, the headmaster told Newton to stop wasting his time playing with the girls and instead focus on his studies if he wanted to succeed in life. Despite the headmaster's warning, Newton continued playing with the girls until he left the school. In 1659, at age 17, Newton entered Trinity College, Cambridge. At this point, he intended to study for the ministry. However, after reading several books on mathematics and philosophy, he changed his mind and decided to devote his life to science. After graduating, Newton returned home to manage his mother's farm, but this didn't last long, because in 1661 he went back to Trinity College, Cambridge, to continue his studies. By this time, he had developed an interest in optics, mathematics, physics, and astronomy. He produced several groundbreaking papers on these topics while working as a fellow and tutor at Trinity Hall. One of these papers, De Motu Corporum in Sectionibus Conici, published in 1687, contained his 3 laws of motion. These laws are still taught in physics classes today. They state that an object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion with the same speed and in the same direction, unless acted upon by an equal and opposite force. In other words, inertia. Force equals mass times acceleration, and for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. In addition to his laws of motion, Newton developed a number of important mathematical concepts. He is credited with discovering calculus independently from Gottfried Wilhelm. This discovery earned him much fame during his lifetime. Newton's work in optics led to his discovery of the color spectrum of light. He discovered that white light is composed of all colors of the rainbow by passing a beam of light through a prism. In 1668, he was elected to the Royal Society, which was a great honor at the time. The Society's members included many of the leading scientists and scholars in England, such as Robert Hooke and Edmund Cousin. It was through his work with the Royal Society that Newton met his only serious rival, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. Leibniz was a German mathematician who had developed calculus independently from Newton. The two men argued bitterly over who had discovered calculus first. But ultimately it didn't matter because both of their discoveries were accepted as correct. By 1672, Newton had worked out the major features of his theory of universal gravitation. According to this theory, every particle of matter in the universe attracts every other particle with a force, is proportional to the product of their masses, and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Newton also developed a number of important astronomical theories. He showed that comets have elliptical orbits by calculating the orbit of Halley's comet. Newton also calculated the mass of the Moon and the Earth, using his theory of universal gravitation. He also developed a method for measuring the speed of light. Around this time, Newton began studying alchemy, which was the forerunner of chemistry. He hoped to find a way to turn lead into gold, but he never succeeded. However, his work in alchemy did lead to some important discoveries in chemistry. For example, he discovered the element phosphorus. In 1687, Newton published his masterpiece, Philosophiae Naturalis, Principia Mathematica, which contained his three laws of motion and his law of universal gravitation. This book established Newton as one of the most important scientists of all time. In 1692, Newton became Master of the Mint, a position he held for the rest of his life. This job took up much of his time, but he still managed to do some important scientific work. For example, he developed his theory of color, which stated that our perception of color depends on the wavelength of light. Newton also worked on the problem of fluxions, which is a branch of mathematics that deals with rates of change. He never completed his work on fluxions, but it was picked up by Leonhard Euler, who developed it into the calculus we know today. In 1705, Newton was knighted by Queen Anne, and became Sir Isaac Newton. He remained a bachelor all his life, although he did have a long-term relationship with a woman named Elizabeth Westcott, with whom he had 2 children. Newton died on March 31, 1727, at the age of 84. He was buried in Westminster Abbey. So why is Newton considered one of the greatest scientists of all time? There are many reasons. First, his work laid the foundations for classical mechanics, which is the study of the motion of objects. His laws of motion and universal gravitation are still used today to predict the motion of objects. Second, his work in optics and mathematics was also groundbreaking. Calculus, for example, is used in almost every branch of science today. Third, Newton was a brilliant teacher, and his lectures at Cambridge were legendary. Students would come from all over Europe to hear him teach. Finally, Newton was a man of great integrity, and he was always willing to share his work with others. He never patented any of his inventions, and he freely shared his ideas with anyone who was interested. However, Newton wasn't perfect. In fact, he could be quite a jerk sometimes. He was often rude to his students, and he could be very stubborn. There was also a dark side to Newton that few people knew about. He was a very private person, and he kept a detailed diary of his thoughts and feelings. In this diary, he revealed a deep-seated insecurity and a fear of being alone. He also wrote about his fear of death, and his belief that he was being persecuted by his enemies. So what would you say is Newton's greatest contribution to science? Let us know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe so that we can keep making them. Thank you for watching.